welcome to Adapting With, a series brought to you by AAF Pittsburgh, interviewing entrepreneurs in the advertising industry here in Pittsburgh. Today we are going to be adapting with Jay Green from Big Science Music. Jay, why don't you give us a little background on Big Science?
Well, who is Big Science is, we've been the last, I don't know, because time, but a good 10 years, we just been this core team of Rebecca, Ray, and myself. And then we have two other sort of part-time people that work for us in accounting and then also usually around the studio. So that's who we are. And we all wear a lot of hats. Those guys wear more hats than me and get a lot of stuff done for us. We work doing music, sound, audio for advertising and for content. So our flagship product is original music. I've written thousands of pieces of music, but we also do everything else, sound design and recording, even ADR for films sometimes, and everything that goes along with sonic nature of content or advertising.
What made you want to get started in the industry?
I didn't really find that I had a choice or that the path sort of found me, although I recognize now, whatever, I found it. But, I didn't have school, so I didn't go to college or anything. So I wanted to make music for a living, and I lied to get a job at this studio that doesn't exist anymore, telling them I could repair things because they wanted some repair technician. And I was bad at that. But what I did do was I learned at night, I'd stay after I punched out, and I'd learn all the aspects of the place. So I'd learn to work I figured out the audio room. I learned to video edit. I learned slideshow programming. I made myself valuable to the owner so that when they figured out I really couldn't fix things, they didn't want to fire me. So I stayed there. There was an engineer there. They used to work in advertising and corporate video. So there was a little sound room. I learned that on my own. And then the main engineer got himself fired. He said some jerky thing to the boss, unfortunately, and the boss didn't like it and fired him on the spot. And there were Lisa Long, who works in our industry still now, was there. And we had a session the next day with Creamer, which was Ann McFadden and Cliff Miller and a few other people doing a Taster's Choice commercial. And so they threw me in the room. They said, "You know how to work that room, right?" I said, "Yeah." And I sweat a lot, but I figured it out and I got through it. I survived it. And then from there, they just left me in there and I learned by trial by fire. They would just keep throwing sessions at me and I learned.
And how long have you been doing this?
Ha ha ha. A good long time, Adele. A good long time.
That's all I need to know. So you have seen a ton of changes probably in the industry and different trends. 2020 has been completely unexpected. Everything kind of turned around for a lot of people in our industry. How did it change for you?
It almost, in a lot of ways, from a work perspective, it didn't. So we do a lot. There was a time, if you come to Big Science, I designed these rooms back when people came over all the time. There'd be bodies in here and seats. And so it's designed to accommodate a group and all that. But as time's gone on, technology has made that, hey, Jay, Ray, you made that change, just upload it for us. Rebecca, helps us get things back and forth. So that already happened. The two aspects of it that are talent that we need to record in the city, whether they're voiceover talent or singers, getting them in and out so that we're not in the same room with them. Luckily, Big Science has a good setup that works with that. So they could come in the building, take an elevator down, never see us, walk into the studio independently, see us through the glass, record. They could hear the agency in their headphones, and they leave the same way, never being in with anybody. So that works out for us. The only thing I miss, because I miss people, there's a lot to be said for people together, and thought energy being together and consolidated among people. And it just isn't the same like this. I'm grateful for this to help get us through, but that aspect hurts a lot, hurts ideation, and it hurts culture and camaraderie and morale, and it hurts creativity in the end a little bit, but we'll get back to it.
In terms of like music composition, how have you been able to work with Ray on, creating pieces for people without being in the same room together?
Um, I write independently always, and so when Ray's writing, Ray writes Ray stuff in his room, based on the client input and everything. But I mean, the harder thing is uh, singers, but that they come in the same as talent. No one in this time yet, thank goodness, has asked for a choir sound or something like that, because I've done plenty of things that maybe not a choir, but a small group of singers of a specialty, whether it's Christmas carols, sung to a brand song or something, or whatever it is. That would be tricky because you need the voices to record together. We could link the two rooms and get two, and with distance in here, maybe three mics together. But it's that we haven't had to do. Musicians bringing in strings or horns or things like that. That's trickier to do in groups. If you want a horn section and you always want the horns to play together, that's hard because you don't want to ask three horn players to come into the room together. So it's cumbersome in those regard. But so far, no one's asked for anything too complex that we can't just pull off somehow.
Back in March, was there any like hysteria with clients? Like, how did you kind of talk them out of, talk them off the ledge?
I didn't perceive any. I think what I perceived March and April was I don't. Some people suggesting that they don't think that we were in here, that they didn't think we were here, and so Ray and I took great pains to make little videos. Ray made the videos that we kept putting out to great annoyance of our social feed followers, I'm sure, because I just kept bombarding the message: we are here. We can do pretty much anything that we could do before. We're here.
Like other people that I've talked to, it's been very interesting to hear how they've had to like navigate and handle these changes. But it sounds like, you guys have had it figured out for a while. It was just kind of leading clients back into your direction. It's just getting them like assured that you're there, you can work in these times, you don't need to adjust much of what you're doing.
We didn't have to adjust too much, just to the thing that the not working with people. So if you want a piece of original music and you have your data and you have strategy plan and you have your rationale for your spot and everything, I want to sit across the table and talk to you for an hour about who we're talking to, why this spot exists, who is it going to affect emotionally, what are we trying to do with this spot. And I do that on the phone or like this, but it is different, and I do miss some of the being across from the table with people. You get a little bit better sense of because music is a hard thing for some people to describe, or these emotions. I try not to talk. I don't say, what band do you want it to sound like? I never do anything like that. I want it to get at why we're doing it. And sometimes when people struggle to describe that, it's better to be with them and see where they're struggling or what their body language is and how I can rephrase the question if need be, things like that.
I think that this year has been opportunistic in our industry. We have to be in marketing, right? You can't be behind the times on anything. You have to be like really proactive. So what do you think are some opportunities for the advertising industry, within, I guess it's the end of the year now, but I guess within the next year?
Um, I I wouldn't say that. I think the biggest opportunity is to not um, buy into this expectation that this is any kind of new normal. Um, I think I think that could be a misstep for some. Sure, there are going to be more people that just go ahead and stay at home, or corporations that say, "Hey, let's cut our real estate footprint down," or whatever. But for the most part, we will get back to a social creature life, and shooting too far the other way, adjusting that this is something that is here to stay now, just because it will be a year and a half, is I see the opportunity in not falling for that too hard.
I just have to plug that the intro for the Adapting series was actually something that you guys composed, and we got to listen to a bunch of different ones, and it was really exciting. I've never worked with you guys before, so it was really cool to see that process and to hear some of the stuff that you have just come up with at random. Tell me a little bit about the podcast that you're working on, The Whole Nine Yards.
Yeah, the whole nine yards. So I used to do a 2-minute radio module for Bear Corporation that was called Everyday Science, and it was heavy sound design, and it aired on 225 some odd public radio stations around the country and a few scattered elsewhere. When that died finally, after like 8 or 9 years, because Bear had corporate stuff, and we developed, because we had this network that we'd built with all these stations, so we developed this idea for a show to replace it that was going to be these sort of explaining idioms in a little 2-minute section. And that was more or less conceived to capitalize on the infrastructure that was already in place, so that we could, jump right in and keep making stuff and having sponsors pay us and all that. But we couldn't find a sponsor for it. We developed a couple prototypes, demos for it, and that didn't pan out. So we put it on ice for a long time, and really, to do it as a podcast, when I brought it up at the lunch table, whatever it was, probably the end of the year before, whatever, I lost all time, but it must have been near the end of 2019. And Rebecca and Ray responded as if, and this happens a lot, like they may have said something to me, and then I'm so like glazed over half the time. So they're like, "Yeah, good idea, Jay." So we screwed together some research, a few topics, and we said, well, let's Ray and I go in the room and try one. And then if it sounds okay, and if we have a thing, if we could do it, and I think we can, because Ray and I have a good camaraderie, we've been together forever, then we'll do something with it. And we did. The first show, we were laughing, it was funny. We were like, this is awesome, let's do it. So we built up a good library of shows and put it out there, and it's taken off. It freaks Ray and I out particularly. I'm sure it freaks Rebecca out too, because her voice is on it as well, on the ad block. That people in Australia and India and Russia and just all over the world, every continent, and thousands of people, and they're listening to Ray and I like every week. We put out a new show every Wednesday morning. That is the freakiest part of it, I think, you know. I mean, I've had ads where I wrote the music and they air all over the world or whatever, and it's something, but this is different. This is like really Ray and I being Ray and I. So, except without swearing and everything, you know.
To finish us off, what is one key thing that you are looking forward to in the new year?
Oh, I think it's the same as everybody. Specifically, I've developed about 4 or 5 favorite bands out of Seattle. I love these bands. I put off a couple of trips that will not be put off a minute longer. As soon as I could see at least 2 of these bands are playing in a similar span of time, I'm going to Seattle. That's the first thing I'm looking forward to.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jay. It's been, again, a pleasure to get to know you. I think a lot of people are going to learn some new things about you. And hopefully it will be like a great way for people to start to more brand awareness for Big Science.
Thanks, Adele.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.